is hard, but I think what you have to remember is like putting yourself out there and doing something and just trying something is like the scariest part. And like the longer you do it, the less scary it gets.
Hello, welcome back to the Evergreen RX. Today is really exciting because we have a guest, my friend Kylen Chen-Troester. She is a content creator and actor based in LA. That's where we're recording right now. She's having me in her home. And a little bit about Kylen. She does agency work as a freelance content creator and lifestyle influencer. And she is also an actor, auditioning, doing commercial and narrative work. She's a Capricorn with a Capricorn moon. And she also loves the New York Times crosswords, the big ones, not the little ones.
True.
She's not a poser. She also loves rats. And her favorite thing is to pick up a little treat at the grocery store. So
basically, we're probably the same.
yeah, so basically she's the best person you've ever met. And today we're just going to be talking all about social media, about her work, her relationship personally, professionally, talking about relationship to being online, some tips on how to engage in a healthier way, and just overall about being authentic and engaged with the internet and how to navigate that relationship. So
Let's hope I don't flub it.
kind of just to get started, I'd love to know when you got started in social media, how it became a part of your life.
Yeah, so I originally went to college for biomedical engineering, and I thought I was going to be a doctor. And 3 years into my degree, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And after some soul searching and like a semester of being undeclared again, I was kind of encouraged by some of my friends at the time to go into advertising because UT had this program called Texas Creative, and it was. Yeah, they were just like, you'd be really good at it. You're really creative. And there is a problem-solving element to advertising that I found kind of similar in a way to engineering that most people like don't really think about. So I graduated with an advertising degree. I moved to New York in February 2020 and started an advertising job at this really great agency that I was so excited to work at. And then the world shut down, and I swiftly came back to Austin. Me and my work partner at the time, we both like lost our job because of the pandemic. And so we were basically interns again, post graduating. And I had this friend at another agency in LA at the time, and she was an art director, and she was basically just like, hey dude, like TikTok's really popping off right now. It's the pandemic. We're all using TikTok to cope. It's clearly emerging as like this really important platform. We're hiring at our company for a TikTok creator. Like, you have experience making TikToks. And I was like, yeah, I make TikToks for fun. Like, I don't have a following.
Yeah, I have a ton of experience.
Yeah, like so much experience. I'm so good at these stupid little trends. And she's like, no, like nobody has experience right now. And I was like, I guess that's kind of true.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And so I applied for the job, and my first big content gig in an agency was helping Xbox make content on their channel, and that was crazy. I like saw the account grow from like 400K to like 2.3 million like subscribers or like followers, I guess. And
crazy.
That was my first gig. And yeah, since then I have really swiveled from like traditional advertising copywriting, so that was like my focus before, and now I'm a content creator, which is actually kind of like a mesh of being an art director, producer, writer, on-screen talent, editor. So it's all of it. But yeah, I've just bounced around. I've done freelance, and then I've had other agency jobs since then.
Yeah, just so crazy, like the pivot that you made from biomedical engineering to advertising, which I do, when you explain it that way, like I do really get it, and just the problem solving aspect and having to just be on top of all of these different facets and really be able to just juggle a lot. I feel like that's probably like what really drives you as a Capricorn as well. Having been online in a casual way growing up, and then all of a sudden it becoming your whole job, I guess now, how would you say your relationship personally versus professionally differs with using social media?
Okay, well, I guess for listeners/viewers, disclaimer, it's not like I'm a huge social media star or anything. Like on Instagram, I have like a cool like 3K followers, and like literally 98% of those people are friends, family, and people I like know.
Okay, a lot friends.
Oh my
You're
god,
super
I know,
popular.
I'm so popular. Just kidding. No, the metrics are down, so clearly some people hate me. But
Oh, no.
that's fine. And on TikTok, I mean, I have like 13K followers, which is like a micro influencer platform for sure. But it's like I'm not like I'm not a name by any means, you know. And I think because I'm still at this level where it's very sustainable for me to just like be myself and posting, like
Yeah.
um, it doesn't really change a lot. I think on Instagram, I really don't use Instagram as like a business platform at all. And even though I like work in social media, like I am a content creator slash like TikTok creator specifically first. And so Instagram is still very much so like my personal like platform. And I've just recently started kind of using it for like my partnerships and things like that. But it's just me still, you know. And on TikTok, I guess like it is my personal, I do have like my personal account that I'm like working on actively, but because I actually have like an agency job at an ad agency where I'm working on accounts as like a creator, and it's not like my account me being an influencer, there is like a pretty stark differentiating factor or like way that I post, you know, for work as like a creator, and I clock in and I do my job and then I clock out. And then my job as like my, you know, freelance content self or like my content is a little bit different. But I don't know. I feel like it crosses over a little bit because I'm not like a name for like the brands I work for at work. I'm just kind of like, it's just my job, you know? And then for me as like my channel, it is something that I would like to grow and to like make sustainable on its own. But I think I still kind of see that as a business, but it allows me to still be me because it's like my channel. You know,
Yeah.
I don't really know if I answered your question.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that you do have a really strong business mindset with creation, which makes sense working for an agency. Like, it is a little bit easier to view that as like, okay, go get it done, meet the deliverables, and like check out. Like, and then with your own creation, kind of still trying to keep that mindset over it as like this is a job. And obviously, I mean, it sounds like it's something that you would want to grow and be able to create even more of your own content, but seeing that it's not really like it's you, but it's not you. You know, I really like talking about this with you in particular because you have the social media and the acting background, like kind of informing your view on this, because I think both of those jobs are so centered around perception and around being seen. One is like kind of being seen for the real you online, which like, what does that even mean? And then the other one is like for the roles that you play and the people you kind of put on as. But both of those just, I wonder how being perceived in the job that you're in and then also your own perception of the world has maybe shifted or been impacted by being online more, by being a creative and kind of always putting yourself out there in a professional sense.
Yeah, I think I have gained some really interesting perspective working in social media as well as acting and, you know, having an advertising background. I think the most interesting thing about, you know, the mixture of all of those things is they blend really well together in this way that I wasn't expecting. But at the core of everything that I do in terms of like advertising, acting, and content creation, it's kind of a tropey word in the advertising industry, but authenticity like is key in all of these aspects. And so whether or not that's like, you know, in advertising they call it like what's the human truth of like what you're trying to say. So like what's the larger, you know, message that we can all relate to? What's that relatability factor? What makes it feel natural? What makes it feel authentic, you know? And I think I got really good at finding that in advertising as a copywriter. And then for content, I feel like in order to succeed as a content creator, people are always like, oh, like the biggest content creators who succeed, they have like an element of themselves, or they're like really, they're themselves online. And like, there's that authenticity factor once again, you know, so it comes back and it's like, people can really sniff out if you are being yourself online. And transparently, that's something I'm still trying to like figure out how to do, and in a way that's like, you know, real but also safe for me, and like not too vulnerable in the sense where like I'm just like, you know, giving strangers elements of me that I don't necessarily like want. And then for acting, like I feel that in order to be a good actor, it's not just like putting on like a character, but it, as you know, because you've acted in the past too with like theater. But
high school
don't
theater.
laugh, don't laugh.
Yep, for
but
sure.
like I think
For
when
sure.
what makes actors really good is like bringing that element of authenticity, and
Yeah.
it's just like you have to, you have to like believe your character or understand their perspective and portray a character in a way that would be that would like pass as a real person in real life, and so you have to, even if they're like the most outlandish character in the world, there has to be something that grounds them, otherwise you're not going to believe it. And I think it's that like suspension of disbelief as an actor, content creator, and like advertiser that is the bottom line of like you have to be authentic and find real moments in everything you do. So
I love that. Yeah, I mean, anybody that's listened to the podcast knows that like authenticity is it's a really good word. It's a favorite word around here.
We love authenticity.
We love authenticity, and I love to hear that you find that is where, or generally in advertising in this work, that is valued to some degree. You're having like a thread of authenticity through things that people do respond well to that, because that's the hardest part of all of these jobs that you're talking about. Like acting, when I was doing my really important work in theater in high school, that was the hardest part to achieve, was to feel like it was authentic in any way. Like that's really when things come across as wooden, because you're like so in your head about like, I'm playing a person, but this is not the person that I am. And like, how do I make this seem believable? And so being able to achieve that, like that really sets people apart. And it takes the vulnerability to do that, like to, really give it your all, and to give like an authentic emotional reaction in a scene or something. You're going to have to risk like maybe missing the mark, or people thinking, wow, she really went for it, and that was kind of weird, or like
that was really bad, and like that was really bad. We've literally all had those moments.
Exactly. Like you have to be able to like just kind of go for it. And I think that is so hard. And with this podcast too, like I'm still finding my footing and struggling to make it feel authentic to who I am, not giving up too much of myself online, because it is like
it's personal.
You have to know that where to draw that line. But if you're drawing it too limited, which is what I tend to do by protecting myself and wanting to just keep things personal and close to the chest. I'm a Taurus, so I think that makes sense.
That makes sense.
I'm like working on trying to like push that line and be like, okay, people aren't going to want to listen. People aren't going to want to follow if they don't feel like they're really getting like Hayden or a little piece of that. And it's a hard line to walk.
It is hard, but I think what you have to remember is like putting yourself out there and doing something and just trying something is like the scariest part. And like the longer you do it, the less scary it gets. And so even by getting over that hump of like being scared or like finding your footing, like I feel like there's very few people who make podcasts or make content or, act, who are like fully embodying authenticity or themselves, because it is a learned skill. Like it is something that like some people may be inherently better at it than others, but you can get better at it by just repetition and practice, and I think that should be really encouraging, because you just kind of get into the swing of it, and then you're like, oh yeah, like you do find like what parts feel like you, and like, or I hope that people feel like that way after they do things for a while, and if it doesn't feel good, then it's like maybe that's not like the right thing. But it does feel weird for everybody starting off something new, because it's uncomfortable and it's strange. So
yeah, and just like you kind of have to test the waters and test your boundaries, and sometimes go past what feels good, or don't go far enough, you're not authentic enough to figure out where that line even is for you. And so that is just so uncomfortable. And there can be a lot of mental chatter too on kind of evaluating your own performance. I don't know if you feel that. I feel that a lot, being like,
oh my god, yeah.
I'm like actively doing podcast recording. It's nice recording with you talking, but god, when I'm like sitting there alone recording, I'll just have these breaks where I just stop talking and I'm just like staring off in the distance, being like, this is the worst thing that I've ever created. Like, this is, it's
That's
all,
what being a creative is. Yeah,
like,
you're doing you do the thing where you like self-edit as you're going, and you're like,
yes.
holy shit, like I need to like redo that or whatever. But no, I think such a universal thing about being a creator, whether that's, podcasting alone or like content creating alone, is that awkward pause where you're doing something and you're in this flow, and then you say something stupid or like something that wasn't quite right. You like look at the camera and it like you break your perception of yourself, and you're like, oh my god, I'm a loser. And then you like go back into it, and you're like, okay, take two. And there's like a tear rolling down your face.
You totally like snap out of it for a second, and you're like, what am I doing?
You're like, I'm talking to myself in a room, and this is really stupid, and I am stupid, and everything is. And then you're like, no, like. Maybe that's a little bit true, but like you have to just like get past that and be like, no, like I think what's important in the sense of just like being creative is like you need to express yourself, and like that comes like that is like the most important thing about the whole thing. Is like, yes, it may feel silly, and yes, it may feel strange and uncomfortable, but like you need to just practice expressing yourself, because like how else are you gonna be able to do it,
Yeah, expressing yourself just for the sake of expressing yourself too. Like,
yeah,
I feel like that
is necessary.
Is exactly like what creativity is, because obviously most people that are creative want to do it to a level of success.
Yeah.
If that means a following, if that means people buying your artwork or whatever that looks like, you want people to engage with the things that you're creating.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can start to supersede like the act itself, as just being like, this is me expressing myself. Like, I'm a living human being, and I have this drive to express, and however that looks. And that's valuable even if no one really engaged, like, because that's also what people like latch onto at the end of the day. That is the authenticity piece, is like, if it's coming from the place of like, I need to do this, like, for whatever reason, I feel like I want to share. And I think there's a lot of limiting beliefs. We've got
an LB in the house.
We got some LBs that come up where it's like, does anybody even care? Like, that's a big one for me. I don't know if you have any LBs that come up for you.
I have so many LBs that come up for me. Like, where do I even start?
It's
but,
like, who wants to see, like, who wants my opinion on this thing?
Right.
Like, making a wellness podcast, it's like me and about 70 billion other people. And I'm like, does anybody want to hear my take on meditation? Like, but I have to believe that there are some people that do.
Yeah, and there are people that do. Like you said, I mean, I don't know, what is there, like 7 or 8 billion people in the world? Like, maybe not, no lump sum of people is going to agree on like one thing or be interested in one thing. But like, yeah, if you did put your work out, there's going to be a lot more people than you think that would be interested in like your take and like your experience, and who would also like resonate with your take and experience. And I think people forget that. Like, also, the internet is a big place. It's also a very small town. But at the same time, like, even though it's both of those things, there is room for everybody. And I think that's really quite cool to think about when you're like, yeah, like maybe there's days where I'm like the smallest fish in like the biggest pond, but like there are always stories written about the small fish in the big pond, and I think people are the small fish in the big pond, and that's like really inspiring to them.
Yeah, I mean, and you have 13,000 people that want to see the stuff that you put out.
Do you wonder how many just like accidentally followed me?
Okay, hey, that's an LB. That is an LB. Yeah, it's just, we all have favorite creators too. When you're thinking about this, or favorite actors or whatever, we gravitate to people for whatever reason. And I think this stuff, like talking about social media, internet in general, is such a interesting kind of microcosm or macrocosm, I don't know which one it would be, of just life in general.
Probably
and
both.
Yeah, exactly. And like personal life too, because it's the same kind of thoughts and negative perception that I find myself getting in. I get in with personal relationships, being like, every person I meet, I must be their favorite person they've ever met. Like, I want to be.
Oh, okay. I was like, you think that?
No,
I
was like,
oh,
that would be amazing.
That's so confident. I think
that would probably be a little problematic.
I was like, oh, interesting.
No, I'm literally like, I find myself being like, I need to be the favorite person they've ever met, or else like, I'm shit. Like, I don't matter. Crazy. Like, what is that? I don't have to be everything to everyone.
No.
Like, there's people that you click with, the people you don't, and that doesn't really mean anything. Like, do you ever find it difficult to not take things personal? I don't know if you've ever gotten any like hate online,
Oh my
but
God. Yeah, everybody's gotten hate online. Like, I think whenever you put yourself out there, like, regardless of what you're doing, like, whether it's a podcast or whether you're like a YouTube channel or like a creator or like an actor, singer, like, literally anything creative that you are putting out to be consumed, you will probably get hate at some point. And it's just part of the gig. And I think part of being a creative is just like, you know, I feel like 90% of the time it's kind of unsolicited, like unwarranted hate or negativity. Not necessarily hate, but like maybe it is just like negativity, or it's just somebody being like, this fucking sucks, or like, you're annoying. And I'm like, you know what? I probably do suck a little bit, and I probably am a little bit annoying. Everybody's a little bit annoying, you know? But it's like, who is this random stranger to tell me like this one facet of myself that does not encapsulate like who I am as like an entire person, you know? And also, whenever people are taking time out of their day to like say something nasty or like try to bring you down, that says a lot more about them than it does you. And I know that sounds like so, you know, like people say that all the time, but it is so true. Like, in my, you know, 10 plus years of being like an person who has like made stuff on the internet as just like a normal person, I have like literally never once took a moment out of my day to like leave a nasty little comment or be snippy with somebody or like be like, this sucks, in like a public way, you know? Like, that's so weird to me, and I will like truly never understand that mindset. But yeah, like, yeah, we've all gotten hate. I love when like a video does semi well, and then like I feel like there's this like euphoria that happens where you're like, oh, like my content is being perceived, and then you're like also start getting really anxious because you're like, any minute now it's gonna hit this other side of the algorithm, and there's gonna be those fucking people who are just gonna be like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, and I'm like, oh my God. But at the end of the day, what I like to remind myself is whenever I'm getting hate or like whenever people are coming in and saying negative things, like, it is a gross way to look at it, but I'm like, that's engagement. And like,
yeah.
and I'm like, you're just making my numbers like increase whether you like it or not. Like, you're forcing another play, you're adding another view, and you are telling the algorithm that my video is interesting in some way, whether or not it's a positive or negative way. So
That's really, I mean,
yeah.
you have some really good reframes on receiving that kind of response, because I think it's really hard to not let that like body you. I don't know, because I haven't gotten any yet. So let's wait.
This is the rationalization of it. I am like, from like a person perspective, like, that shit sucks. Like, there have been like random comments I've gotten from like literally like no name, no follower, like anonymous people that have like made me feel like shit for like hours, even up to like a day or two, you know? But like, then you just get over it, and you can't let it stop you, because you're just like, well, if I got mad at every single thing that somebody said, unless it's like completely justified and I like said something really awful and somebody was like, that was really awful of you today, and they're like trying to like gently or like righteously call you out for something, that's different. But if it's just like unwarranted hate because they're just being mean and they're just like trying to say something to like make you feel bad about yourself, you just like can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. There is like some level of just like, you don't want that to stop you from doing what you want to do in your life. And I think I was thinking about this the other day about, you know, if you think about the most like annoying person you've ever met, you know, that person has a best friend who thinks that they're the best, which is honestly, it's beautiful when you think about when you're like around someone that's really annoying, and you're like, damn. And it's like, but they have people that love them, and that is so great. And sometimes it is just a healthy reminder of like, if somebody commented and was like, you are the most annoying person, like, I would be like so hurt. But then it's like, one, that person doesn't really know me, and two,
you'd be like, Kylen doesn't think that. You can always just like go back to that.
Right, exactly. Like, there are people in my life that don't think that. Like, I'm probably, to everybody in my life, there's probably times where I am a little bit annoying, or I do suck a little bit, or whatever.
We all have our like I suck moments, you know.
But they're not like, you know, all of the loved ones in our life aren't thinking like, wow, I love Kylen, but man, she is the most annoying person in the world. Like, they don't find that, you know, because it's so subjective.
Right.
So it's just like, I hear when you're talking about it, like those reframes that you've kind of created for yourself over time to just, you know, even to be in the moment, the day or so that it just does suck and it does hurt. And then you go on and like, you just keep doing what you're doing.
But also, it's just like not realistic to expect everybody to be nice and like you all the time. Like, that would be such a weird, like, fake environment to create for yourself where there's no hardship and like no, you know, pushback or differences of opinions. Like, that's also just like not conducive to like being healthy person who has to like deal with things,
any progress, any
Right.
growth. Like we
Right.
wouldn't ever change
Yeah,
if that was
so
the
like
case.
it is kind, it's like necessary for character development. No, but like it kind of is, you know. It's like, no, like you have to go through some stuff and like decide how you want to react to it and like how you're going to move forward, and whether or not the feedback or, you know, words were justified. If so, how can I learn from this and, you know, take it and move forward, and if not, how can I like figure out how to release it so it doesn't make me feel like I'm gonna like die, you know? So
Yeah. So, I want to know, what are your thoughts on how to make social media or our relationship to social media healthier?
healthier, that's a really good question. Some things that I feel like I try to do to make social media healthier in a way. My partner would say I do a pretty bad job. Like honestly, I feel like because my job is social media, I often use it as an excuse to like be on my phone because I'm like, oh, I have to like know what's going on, or like I have to be posting or up to date on things. But that's not necessarily true. I need to get better this year at like outsourcing my like research. So instead of literally like sitting there and scrolling and looking for like inspiration or, you know, things to jump on as like a trend or whatever, I do hope to like find either platforms that kind of like, you know, send that to me in like digest form, or even looking within myself and being like, I don't need to be going with what's like 100% trending. Like, what do I want to be posting, and like, what can I create? My partner always says like he hopes that he can, you know, create more than he consumes, and I think I need to get like better at that.
He would
this
say
year.
that.
I know he's like so much more like in tune with everything than I am, but I think he's 100% right, you know. And I think people in this day and age are often using working in social media as an excuse to like not unplug and like log off. But like we need to log the fuck off, because like if you were like constantly consuming, you're not going to be inspired, you're not going to be feeling like you want to create anything, and you're going to make bad content. Like you actually have to live your life, you have to have conversations with real people that you love, you have to do real things in the real world that you like, and you will become a much more interesting person, and that will in turn lend itself to like more interesting content if you choose to like make it content, you know?
That is a really good point, because I think to take it, I mean, one, you know this, I recently got another old phone to use as like a work phone, because I was like, I don't want to have this shit on my phone. Like I need to be able to put that away and not even be able to open it. You know, I'm not logged in on my personal phone. And I think that's just a boundary for me. And some people don't need that boundary, but it can be helpful to just separate out, and on more of a woo-woo stance too. I think when you really do look inside at what content you want to create and what you're feeling and what you're thinking, what's been on your mind, you are tapping into something more collective. I find that so often. I'm subscribed to this one girl's newsletter. Every time she sends it out, she has this blurb talking about her life. And it's like exactly what I'm going through. And she just like words it in this really eloquent way and like always has this insight. And I'm like, oh my God, I was just thinking this. This is so crazy. Like, how are we always on this same wavelength? But that's really like what creativity is, at least from my point of view. And I mean, it's not just mine, it's from many people's point of view. It's like tapping into something more collective and doing it, again, going back to what you're saying, creating it for the sake of expression and creation itself. Like, I want to do this. I want to say this. I want to put this out into the world. And I'm not just doing it because it's the biggest trend, so I think it'll like pop off the most and I'll get the biggest following. Because while that is a strategy, and if you're trying to make a job, I think that there is value to really like maximizing, you know, the most that you can, like how the algorithm works. But I think long-term sustainability, I just don't know if that works. Like, I don't know if it's fulfilling.
It must not be. And I feel like there have to be some creators out there who are like just making content that's viral and working, but it's not them, you know? But I feel
like, where are those creators at now? Like, think about the creators from 2 years ago, especially on TikTok. Like, where are some of those people at now?
You know, they're probably doing fine.
I mean, they're doing fine. They get their like
they're getting
Abercrombie and Fitch deal or whatever.
Big ass like partnerships and paychecks. I'm
for sure.
But
yeah.
like, are they happy? Are they fulfilled by the content that they've, feel like they might have like dug themselves into in terms of like a niche? Maybe not. But I feel like especially those people feel like they can't really swivel very well. Or I feel like, or the most successful creators like see the content they've made. If they're not happy with it, they find a way to kind of swivel into something else, and they like either hire other people or they like grow their team, and they are kind of consulted on like how to become an actor or become a podcaster. So they have like different outlets, which I think is actually code for different sources of revenue. But
yeah,
what you're gonna do. So
yeah, I think that makes me think of something that maybe could be helpful in terms of creating a healthier relationship if you are someone that's putting a lot of content out, not just a consumer, is allowing for more diversity in who you are in your content. Because I think what we're talking about that feels like it's not sustainable, or maybe it doesn't lead to the most happiness, is when you get really just pigeonholed. Like it's this one thing and it's not very nuanced, it's not very diverse.
yeah.
And that's not very human either. If we're going back to the authenticity piece, it's like you're really not going to just be this one note person.
No.
To be a persona to a degree, you have to pick a lane.
Yeah.
But I think that's always what I'm hoping to achieve with this podcast too, is finding a way to be as diverse and nuanced of a person online as I can be, so that I don't feel stuck, or I don't feel like it becomes this weird caricature of Hayden. And like,
well, if it makes you feel better, I think you're doing a really good job at that.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But it's like there's not a lot of models online for how to do that. I mean, there's a ton of people making amazing content out there, but sometimes it feels like that's not, being authentic, being a nuanced person online sometimes feels like that's like not what you should do. Things I thought of too in terms of like just relationship to social media as a consumer, because one thing that I don't think I've really talked about on the podcast much before is I like was not on social. I've like never really been on social media.
Yeah, you were like so offline.
No, so offline, and then I was like, podcast time. Let me be super online.
Which is actually, that's kind of wild. Like, how have you been feeling about like that shift?
It's very hard for me.
Yeah,
it is really hard for me. Like, it's great the more I get to talk to you about it. You want it as a job because it's legit your job.
Yeah.
So kind of helping me be like, okay, I don't have, like, this doesn't have to be. Sometimes the feeling is like, I'm just giving so much of myself away. Like that's a personal feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's perceived that way to other people or people that consume it, but that really limits me. And I do find myself self-editing a lot out of fear. And so it's just been like a whole new world because I just never wanted, I remember like 6th grade when Instagram like first was a thing, and I downloaded and could look up people from like camp.
6th grade.
I know. I could look up people from camp and I saw them all hanging out and I was like, this makes me feel bad. I don't want this. And I deleted it.
Yeah.
And then I never had a personal one again.
Oh, that's so sad to like, luckily I never had Instagram in like middle school, but I feel like that must suck so badly for kids where like everything already feels so big and like so scary. Like I can't even imagine how, like, honestly, that was very smart of 6th grade you.
So I know, so early on, like I feel like that's very emblematic of me. I'm like, this is not healthy. I'm stopping it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but very early on, I was like, I don't think this works for me. And so now I'm like having to like relearn and like trust myself with it. That like I can have healthy boundaries. Like one of the things is a friend told me that she likes to unfollow people that she notices that she's comparing herself to instead of just being happy for what they're doing, which, oh my God, how hard. I think we'd all have to unfollow really a lot of people.
Yeah.
But creating healthy boundaries like that, for me, it's like showing myself that I can do that and I can be online and I can participate in social media without it feeling like I become a different person or that I'm not happy in my engagement. Because there's a lot of amazing things online. There's people that I don't know, I will never know, and they've brought me so much joy through what they've created. And that's really amazing.
I mean, it's a huge resource, and it like allows you to find community in like very niche ways and just like learn if done properly, you know?
Yeah.
And so, no, the internet and like social media is like, I think it's I don't know if I would say like it's either positive or negative. It's just like a thing. It could be used for like really good things, and it can be used for like really bad things. And so,
It's healthy detachment. I think that's what I've been working on too. Like it is not inherently bad being online, and it's not bad if you're not online.
Yeah.
But I think for a long time I had the perspective like, oh, I'm not a person that's on. I'm not a social media person. I'm not
online.
I don't do that. I'm not online.
Oh my God, you were like one of those mysterious girls. If you're like on a date and you're like, can I like grab your Instagram? You're like, I don't have one.
I don't have one.
And I'm like, oh my God, that would make me so much more attracted to them almost. Because I'm like, oh my God, you're so mysterious.
There can be a little bit of a superiority complex with it sometimes. Like, oh, I'm not online, or you can't. I don't.
You are better than them.
Yeah. I'm 100%. Yeah.
And now, well, I mean, kind of.
And now I'm online, so I'm down with the dogs. Yeah.
You're really out here in the mud with us.
Yeah. I totally just knocked myself down a few pegs. But no, it's like there was also, for me, definitely lack of vulnerability on the fact of I don't want this person that I don't talk to anymore to be able to find me and know anything going on in my life. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? If somebody that doesn't really talk to me anymore or isn't like an active part of my life, whether that's like a good or bad thing, if they find me online and they're able to like kind of learn about me and never have to engage with me, really, who gives a shit?
That's true.
Why do I care?
Yeah.
What does it matter?
What are they gonna say?
If they're spending time, like I do that to other people. Like I stalk people online for sure.
Ooh, do you hate stalk people, or are you pretty good?
See, this is bad. Now you're making me out myself, and I feel like as a therapist, I have no. I definitely do that. Definitely.
Really?
Yeah, it's like that's settled down over the years because I'm like I can't but it's so hard to not look at people that you either have known or don't even know. Like sometimes celebrities, and I'm like, oh, you know, or like influencers. Or I'm like, this person is they're so confusing to me, or like I don't really like them, and I want to see what they're doing, and it's like, I never really leave that feeling good.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
people are going to do that to me.
Totally.
People already probably do. People do that to you.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's fine. It's engagement.
It is engagement.
It's engagement, baby. That's what it is at the end of the day. Well, any other tips or tricks or anything you'd like to put out to anybody that's looking for a healthier relationship with being online?
With social media. Inevitably, most of us are going to be online. And I do think it's really important for us to just like be mindful about like how we are like netizens, basically. I think like
netizens, is that like
a net citizen? Yeah, a citizen of the net, if you will.
Of the net.
I feel like my grandma or something, like, oh, I'm like a netizen. No, but I do think like I wish they worked on me better, but like setting social media like limits on my phone, that has helped me realize that I am a little bit more addicted than I would like to be, because I automatically am just like dismiss.
Nope. Yep.
Yeah. But it is a good like just like reminder to pull you out of it and just be like, oh crap, like I've spent 2 hours like straight on this thing.
Sometimes it's like, what is my posture? Like, how is my neck?
Oh, I know
health?
I look like a gremlin when I'm doing that, you know? So I'm like, oh God. So yeah, setting time constraints, restrictions on yourself is pretty important. I do think, like your friend says, like I think a really big one is, you know, not feeling pressured to follow people anymore, or in general, just because like they are somebody you know or have known. If it's like a random person from high school that you've literally not said a word to for, you know, 10 years and you're like, don't really care about seeing them on your feed. Like, I don't think that we should all take it as personally anymore to be like, I just like don't really need that anymore. Like,
so true.
Yeah.
There's so many different motivations for people unfollowing or, you know, however they engage online. And one thing I'll say is my typical PSA is I think sometimes, you know, setting those limits, like that can be hard to maintain and to actually follow through.
Yeah.
So it's always something to work through in therapy.
Yeah. No,
it's always, or just talk to your friends or journal about it or whatever. Like if something's coming up where you're having a really hard time changing your relationship to feel healthier to you, then maybe exploring why that is. Is there like a fear underneath? Like if you're not engaged, then you know, you're going to miss out, or somebody's going to get mad at you if you're not online, or, you know, whatever it could be, working that out. Because I think sometimes when we try to like do behavioral changes and they're not working, then you can feel really bad. You're like, oh, I can't follow through. And I always hit ignore. And, you know, I'm so like week, like, you know, whatever it is.
Oh, for sure.
And it might be because there's just something that's underneath that for you. And so working that out, because I think that there is a way, like, I don't know, I feel like after talking with you about this too, it's like I feel more like hope and a sense of like positivity towards this tool that we have, and being able to use it and to understand, like, it's really not going anywhere, and it is a big part of our life.
Exactly.
But it can look however you want it to look.
Like, you have the power. It is hard, and they do make these platforms so that they are like capturing your attention and trying to keep you captive, you know. But like, we do have the power to decide like how we want to use these platforms, how we want to put ourselves out there, if at all, and like, you know, how we want to react to things, even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes. So I think, just like setting those boundaries and just being mindful. And honestly, like, if you're not having a good time, log off. If you're not liking what you're doing in general, not just social media, like, maybe just quit. Like, maybe quit. Like, quitting's not a bad thing necessarily.
So where can people find you? I'll have it linked, but
my TikTok handle is at KylenCT, and my Instagram is at NiHaoKylen.
Oh my gosh, love it. Thank you so much for coming on and having me.
Thanks for having
in your
me.
home.
I love
sure
hosting you.
Everybody
Thanks
listening.
for hosting me on your pod as I host you in my home.
Oh my God, yeah, my pleasure. That is an equal exchange. But so much fun, and thanks, and hopefully have you on again.